The wine moves across the open fields of Heartland, carrying the quiet echo of memories long gone. The ranch feels bigger now, emptier somehow. For years, Amy has lived with a part of her heart missing, a part that once beat in perfect rhythm with his, but this season, something is about to change. Because after all this time, after all the silence, after all the years apart, Ty is finally coming home. There was a time when Ty and Amy's love story felt unbreakable. It began with shy glances across the barn, late-night talks under the endless Alberta sky, and the quiet understanding of two souls who felt safer together than anywhere else. Ty wasn't just a partner, he was Amy's anchor. Together, they faced loss, laughter, and the kind of everyday struggles that only made their bond stronger. But life has a way of testing even the deepest love. Seasons passed, and change arrived uninvited. Ty's absence wasn't a simple goodbye, it was the kind that left questions hanging in the air, the kind that left a silence too heavy to break. Some said he wouldn't return, others didn't say anything at all, as if speaking the truth might hurt more than holding on to hope. For Amy, the ranch became both her comfort and her burden. Every day was filled with work mending fences, caring for horses, training clients, but underneath it all, there was an ache she couldn't hide. Some mornings she would step out onto the porch and look across the hills, half expecting to see him walking up the road, but the road stayed empty. And so did a part of her heart. Friends and family tried to keep her spirits alive. Jack, with his quiet wisdom, reminded her that love doesn't disappear just because someone is gone. Lou encouraged her to keep moving forward, telling her that Ty would want her to live, not just wait. But deep down, Amy knew that she wasn't just waiting, she was holding on. Holding on to the belief that one day the story wouldn't end. Like this, still, time kept moving, birthdays came and went. Holidays passed with an extra seat at the table that no one talked about. Even the horses seemed to notice Spartan, her most trusted companion, often stood with her at the fence line. As if sensing her thoughts, life continued, but it wasn't the same. And then, small things began to change. A letter arrived, its handwriting so familiar it made her hands shake. A friend mentioned seeing someone who looked like Ty in a nearby town. Each sign was tiny, fragile, almost too easy to dismiss. But for Amy, they were sparks, little flickers, of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. What she didn't know was that the quiet days were numbered. The years of missing him were leading to a moment she could never prepare for. A moment that would change everything. The morning started like any other on the ranch. The sun climbed over the hills, painting the fields in soft gold. Amy was already outside, her boots damp from the dew, the air crisp with the scent of hay. To anyone else, it was an ordinary day. But for Amy, there was something different in the air, something she couldn't name. She moved through her chores with Spartan close by, his calm presence always grounding her. Yet her mind kept drifting. That letter she'd received weeks ago still sat folded in her jacket pocket, worn from the time she had pulled it out just to trace the handwriting with her fingertips. The words had been careful but personal. They didn't say everything, but they said enough. Ty was alive, he was safe, and he was coming back. Jack had noticed the change in her. "You've been smiling more," he said one evening over coffee. Amy shrugged it off, but the truth was she couldn't stop herself. Even so, a part of her was cautious. It had been years, people change, time changes everything. What if the Ty who came back wasn't the same Ty she once knew? What if she wasn't the same Amy? As the days passed, little hints began to appear like threads pulling her towards something inevitable. A pickup truck parked briefly at the end of the drive, a familiar shadow in the crowd at the local feed store. Each time she turned to look, he was gone. It was enough to keep her heart racing, enough to make her wonder if her mind was playing tricks. One evening, she found herself in the loft above the barn, sitting on the old couch they used to share. The air smelled faintly of leather and hay. And as the light faded, memories came flooding back. Dad teaching her to play cards, the way he laughed when she cheated, the quiet moments when they didn't need words at all. She realized then that no matter how much time had passed, those moments had shaped her in ways she couldn't undo. But just as hope began to grow, doubt crept in. What if something went wrong? What if he changed his mind? She tried to tell herself not to expect too much, to be ready for anything. Still, each night she found herself listening for sounds outside: the crunch of tires on gravel, the low rumble of an engine she knew by heart, and then, one late afternoon, as the sun dipped low and painted the ranch in amber light, Amy heard something that made her stop mid-step. Hoofbeats, not Spartan's steady rhythm, but another set faster, lighter. She turned toward the sound, her breath caught in her chest. Somewhere beyond the pasture, a figure on horseback was riding toward the ranch. The distance blurred the details, but she didn't need to see clearly. Her heart knew before her eyes. Something was happening, and this time, she wouldn't turn away. The sound of hoofbeats grew louder, filling the air with a rhythm that seemed to match the pounding in Amy's chest. She stood at the edge of the pasture, her boots rooted to the ground, unable to move. The late day light bathed everything in gold, turning dust into glitter in the air. Spartan shifted beside her, ears forward, sensing something in the way only a horse can. As the rider drew closer, the figure became clearer. The familiar seat in the saddle, the way the reins were held firm but gentle. And then, the moment that made her breath hitch, that slight tilt of the head she had seen 1,000 times before. It was him. It was Ty. Her mind flashed through. A lifetime in seconds, those early days of awkward smiles, nights spent under the stars, the way he had once promised, no matter where I go, I'll always find my way back to you. And now here he was, keeping that promise. Ty slowed his horse as he approached the fence, his eyes locked on hers. For a long moment, they didn't speak. Words felt too small for what years of distance and longing had built inside them. Instead, they just stood there, drinking each other in. Then he swung down from the saddle, boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. He took a few steps toward her, his hand brushing the fence rail, and in that simple movement, Amy felt the years between them collapse. Her vision blurred as tears welled up. He said softly, almost like he was afraid she might disappear if he spoke too loudly. Amy tried to answer, but her voice caught. Instead, she crossed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him. For a heartbeat, it felt like the world stopped turning. His arms tightened around her, grounding her, anchoring her in the reality that this was no dream. She could feel the warmth of him, hear the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to explain, nothing to fill the silence. Everything they had missed, every word they had wanted to say over the years, was there in that embrace. Finally, she leaned back just enough to look at him. His face was older, a little more worn from the road, but his eyes those same steady. Kind eyes were exactly as she remembered. You came back, she whispered. I told you, he replied, his voice low, steady. I'd always find my way back. The wind moved gently around them, carrying away the dust and the years of separation. Behind them, the ranch stretched out just as it always had, but in that moment, it felt different. It felt whole again. They didn't talk about the years apart, not yet. That would come later. For now, they just stood together, holding on, letting the quiet say everything words couldn't. And for Amy, for the first time in a long time, the road ahead didn't feel empty. The sun had slipped lower now, casting long shadows across the ranch. Amy and Ty walked slowly toward the barn, side by side, neither one in a hurry to let go of the moment they had just found. The crunch of gravel beneath their boots was the only sound for a while, and it felt right. After years of imagining what this day would be like, Amy didn't want to rush a single second. Inside the barn, Spartan leaned over his stall door, nickering softly as if welcoming Ty back. Ty smiled and reached out, running a hand along Spartan's neck. "Hey, old friend," he said quietly, and the horse pressed closer, remembering him. Amy watched the scene, her heart aching in the best way possible. They didn't dive into questions. There was too much to unpack: where Ty had been, why it had taken so long, what had kept him away. Those conversations would come later, under the safety of night or over morning coffee, when the weight of their words could settle gently. For now, they both knew this was a fragile, precious thing they had to protect. Amy noticed small details she hadn't before: the roughness in Ty's hands, the faint lines near his eyes, the way his shoulders seemed heavier than they once were. Life had shaped him in ways she didn't yet understand. But even with the changes, there was a steadiness in him, the same grounding presence that had once made her feel safe. As they stood in the warm glow of the barn light, a wave of realization washed over Amy. This was the start of something new, not a return to the past, but a step into an uncertain future. And with that came questions she couldn't shake. Could they rebuild what time had pulled apart? Could love find its way after being lost for so long? Later, as they stepped out onto the porch, the night had settled over Heartland. The stars stretched endlessly above them, bright and unyielding. Ty leaned against the railing, looking out at the fields. "Feels like nothing's changed," he murmured. Amy shook her head, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "Everything's changed," she replied. And she knew it was true, because she had changed, he had changed, and the ranch itself felt like it had been waiting for this moment just as much as she had. They stayed there for a while, the silence between them no longer heavy, but full of possibility. Somewhere inside, Amy felt the ache she had carried for so long begin to ease. The road ahead would not be simple, they both knew that. But it was a road they could walk together. As the camera of your mind pulls away from the porch, the ranch stands quiet again, bathed in moonlight. Two silhouettes remain against the night sky, side by side, facing whoever comes next. And for the audience, one question lingers in the air. After years apart, can a love like this truly begin again? The night had settled deep over Heartland, wrapping the ranch in a quiet stillness. The porch light cast a warm glow over Amy and Ty as they stood side by side, neither speaking, both lost in their own thoughts. It wasn't an awkward silence, it was the kind that comes when words feel too small for the moment. For Amy, the world felt strangely steady again. For years, every step she took felt like it was on uneven ground. But now, with Ty beside her, the weight she'd carried began to shift. She could finally breathe without the tightness in her chest, even if she didn't yet know what the future would hold. Ty glanced over at her, his eyes catching the light. "It's been a long road," he said softly. She nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars. "Yeah, and it's not over yet." In the distance, the faint whinny of a horse carried across the fields, and the smell of fresh hay drifted from the barn. It was as if the land itself had been waiting for this moment, holding its breath until Ty returned. But with his return came an unspoken truth: they couldn't just pick up where they left off. They would have to learn each other all over again. Amy thought about the years apart, the unanswered questions, the empty space at the table, the long nights spent wondering. She didn't ask him for explanations tonight. She didn't need them. Not yet. All she needed was this, the simple fact that he had come back. Ty leaned on the porch railing, eyes scanning the fields as if searching for something familiar. "Feels like home," he said. Amy smiled faintly, a tear slipping down her cheek. "It always was." And then, just like that, they stood in quiet harmony, two souls who had found their way back to each other through distance, time, and uncertainty. There would be challenges ahead, old wounds to heal, trust to rebuild, and a future to shape. But in that moment, the only thing that mattered was that they were standing here together. Asterisk the camera of your mind pulls back. The wrench now just a small dot under a vast Alberta sky filled with stars. The night is still, but it hums with possibility. Asterisk a final line hangs in the air, carried by the narrator's voice. Asterisk after years apart, love has brought them home. But will it be enough to keep them here? Asterisk the screen fades to black. Asterisk soft guitar. Notes play over the final frame. Asterisk white text appears. Asterisk Heartland, Season 19, only on CBC. Asterisk.